I used to look into a lot of cults and things. So I looked into, or extreme religions. And I did a lot on the Hasidic Jews, for example.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the stuff they do, I was appalled by, and I thought that's terrible. And what a horrible, if you want to leave that, it's terrible. But for those who really enjoy it and embrace it, they love it because there's no TV. They're getting story time with the sort of, I don't know, the leader of the community. They're all sitting around and having a little story time. They feel very much all part of it together. There's a community. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I don't want it. But you can't have. It's either you go. It's like one extreme with the communal, or the other. And what you're saying, I think, it's just individuals now. There's no sense of community anymore. And you're right. Islam does have that, and I think that makes them stronger. And I think that's why we're getting taken apart.
I think it does, but you've got an issue with Islam, and it's a very prevalent issue as well. That's not really being addressed, and that's that 3% of the 6.5%. So you've got 100% of Muslims in the UK, but 3% of them are radical. They're Islamists. They are here to damage the UK, and they are here to attack schools with young kids in it. They're here to do as much damage as they can, and that is a big problem. And we're not screening them when they come in, of course, because our borders are open, and that's the problem I think we've got. So as much as you could say, and what they will say to us is, well, we see your women as oppressed. Because we can say, well, Afghani women, not that we care because it's Afghanistan or it's Iraq, it's not our business, you know what I'm saying? We can say, well, of course it was our business, but it's not now. We can say, well, we went to war in Afghanistan so women could wear miniskirts. That was the thinking, not that I was thinking that. It was because of Osama bin Laden, wasn't it? But people will use that analogy. And what some in Islam will say is, well, we think your women are oppressed because you allow your women to go out uncovered, and it's, you make them work. We don't make our women work, you know what I mean? And so there is definitely a conversation to be had. What I'm saying is Islam isn't compatible with the West. And that fundamentally is where I stand with it. I just don't want it in the UK. I don't want it in any form in the UK. I mean, if we're going to have it in the UK, let's have it manageable. If we're going to talk about Islam, we can. But, I think when it comes down to community, they have, I think, a pretty solid community. Although if you want to talk about Islam and the community, and when it comes to raping young white girls, well, we can talk about that as well, because I didn't see anyone in the Pakistani community calling that out. 10% of all Pakistani Muslim men in Telford were convicted of raping white girls. So where's the women marching down the streets for that? Where are the Pakistani Muslim women saying, this is not right? I'll tell you where they were. They were celebrating their men when they were sent down. They were saying, love you, daddy, when he got sent down. So they obviously knew about it. So when we talk about community cohesion, it's not always a good thing necessarily. And I think that needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah. This is something that I think a lot of people don't realize about those grooming gangs or our gangs. Mohan Singh was saying, it's not gangs like mobs or mafias or these sort of people out on the street go, it's people's families.
Sure.
And his understanding of it, and Mohan Singh is a Sikh who's very much involved in the Sikh and Hindu and Islamic communities. He's very much a part of all of that. He's intertwined with it all. Is that it's the women know, the wives know, the kids know, everyone's sitting around at dinner, and it's almost like an unsaid thing probably. I don't imagine that the wives are going, wahaha, good, you're going out and doing this and that.
Yeah, of course.
They just know, they have no power.
Of course.
That's really scary.
Well, it is in the UK. Now, if you want to go out into Qatar, UAE, Saudi, I don't care. You can do that if you want, but not here.
Well, they stop it though, don't they? I think.
Well, they do. So you're absolutely right. Now, this is the other thing, isn't it? So no Christian in those countries can be in government, whereas we allow Muslims to be in government here. And so this is something else we need to consider as well, because we know that certain communities vote on a certain way because someone tells them to do it. And I don't think really Christians necessarily do that. But I do think that conversation needs to be had. There's a lot of conversations we need to be had that aren't being had. And what are we doing? It's almost as if it's come so far now that we should just all shut up and let what happen happen. It's going to happen, isn't it? So there's going to be a spark that kicks it off. And I think, looking at other countries, we'll probably see that before it comes here. But you're right. But also, let's not excuse it. So that's what a lot of people do. They say, well, it's the community. This is why it happens, because it's part of their culture. Not in the UK, it's not. I mean, for every one of me sat in front of you, there's another 100,000 of me thinking exactly the same thing. And I meet them. I meet these men.
Terrorists, all of us.
All of us terrorists. All of us going to be in jail. And we can be very angry. The thing about Britishness, if you want to term that, or Englishness, and I prefer to use Englishness because Britishness is an export variant where anyone that comes in a rubber dinghy now can be British, can't they?
Sure.
I'm English, I'm half Welsh, I'm actually a bit eighth German as well. It's all a bit of a mix, but still I'm from these lands and this is where my family came from. All of us have a responsibility to do something about this in a way that is, of course, not inflammatory or violent. I've got to say that, haven't I? Because else we're going to have jail. Yeah. But you have to protect your families, you have to protect your communities and stuff. This is, it comes down to if certain communities within the UK don't want to sort themselves out, they will be sorted out. Of course they will. Because it's always going to, look what's happening in Ireland right now. You only got to watch what's happening in Ireland. It's going to kick off there pretty soon.
Do you think that's the place where civil war will start?
Well, civil war is a really interesting one because I'm not an expert on that, and you need to speak to experts on civil war because people like David Betts and people like that are pretty good at this sort of stuff. However, he was saying that it wasn't going to be a civil war between the white population and, say, another population. It was going to be within other populations, so Indians and Pakistanis or something like that, you know what I mean? That's what he was thinking, I think, with civil war, from what I remember. But he's actually said recently as well, he sees Ireland as a bit of a leading light in what's going to happen.
Yeah.